Welcome back to Opposing Force. I'm Blastinus, and this has been one heck of a first day, hasn't it? I mean, theoretically speaking, I believe that it was pretty close to the first day for Barney as well. And actually, Gordon Freeman, he didn't last long at Black Mesa before everything went kaput for him, too, so I guess this has been just a really bad first day for everybody. It's at least fortunate that they made a hole in the wall here, otherwise we'd have to go back up there and explain to our superior officer why there's a guy, lying on the ground in front of a prisoner. That'd be a little bit tough to explain, all things considered. Actually, come to think of it, the radio operator guy's in the kind of the same boat as we are. He's also been left to rot. Come to think of it, are we absolutely sure that it's just us that the G-Man is messing with? Like, when you think about it, he could totally be in several places at once. We don't know. There could be all kinds of people who he's messing around with, toying with their destinies, and pulling the strings to make sure that they're in the exact place that he wants them to be. Anyway, let's talk about the actual game part of this game, shall we? Missing in action reminds me a lot of Office Complex, and for a number of very good reasons. For instance, this room that we're about to be going over, which is full of electrified water, with only a few desks that we can jump on top of in order to insulate ourselves. The trick here is that while we're crawling through these vents, if we step on any of these rotted floor tiles, then we can get dropped down into the electrified water. So we gotta be careful here. And boom, yeah. This is actually a lot more complicated than it looks. There are very tiny spaces where we can jump safely and not get dropped down, but if we ever make a mistake, we can just climb our way back up, of course. Yeah, the consequences for failure here are pretty obvious. When you see one spinning fan, you basically have seen them all. And hey, who doesn't like a good steam pipe puzzle? Just don't fall into the water here, because there's a little surprise waiting for us. Yep, that's leeches, alright. And where there's leeches, there's the other kind of fish. Oh boy, that'll be fun when we get to that. Now, as for the puzzle itself, I'm not sure if jumping onto the railing is supposed to be the solution, but it's certainly one that works, as we can see here. I would say the big thing about Opposing Force is that there's just a certain amount of awkwardness to the whole thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad game, it's just that it's kind of rough around the edges. In particular, they don't really do Valve's thing of using light sources or geometry to point where the player should go. Instead, there are a number of red herrings just based on the fact that they put things together without really thinking about whether or not the player would be distracted by it or think that it was more important than it actually was. I mean, as you can see here, I was poking around in an area that is pretty much inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. Anywho, who's ready for some more fans? These ones are actually a little bit trickier than they look because there's actually a very small divide between safe and dead. You really have to basically be creeping right in the middle. And over here, I'd say this one is pretty obvious. Just gotta wait until the fan blade is out of the way. But that's not the end of our little trap gauntlet here. When I think about it in retrospect, it's actually kind of ridiculous how many of them there are in close succession. So, yeah. Jets of fire. Why are these even here? Who knows? We don't work here, it's not our problem. All we really have to worry about is getting past them, which is trickier than it sounds, actually. They move so slowly that if you go too early, you can actually get scorched by the tail of them. Yeah, ask me how I know that. And even if we successfully traverse the fire, the game actually has a surprise waiting for us on the other side. Meet the Gonome, the evolved form of a headcrab zombie. They actually look scarier than they are to fight. You see, they still keep their weakness to the head, and since their head is a lot bigger, they can actually be taken out fairly quickly as long as you're pretty accurate. Oh yes, you didn't think that we were done with the fire traps, did you? This next bit is actually a very good demonstration of what I was talking about before. Look at what happens to my health as I try to pass this fireball here. You saw that, right? How just nudging it slightly caused me to lose so much armor? You can actually go from full health to 0 in about 2 or 3 seconds if you're unlucky. Anyway, let's talk about the Gonomes some more. They actually do have a projectile attack where I guess they throw their own guts at you, but it's not too bad. You can just circle around them. Generally, you can defeat them pretty easily as long as you've got patience and you've got distance on them. And I demonstrated this a little bit ago, but your pipe wrench is a very effective tool against your garden variety zombies. I wouldn't recommend it against the Gonomes, like they're actually pretty fast at melee range. As far as this next puzzle goes, I think the solution is pretty obvious. After all, you remember the last time the game told us to not put explosive canisters in dangerous places. Another clue, of course, is that during that last firefight, we tried to blow up the canister, but we couldn't kill it using, direct shots, so we have to use it for a special purpose. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty special. But, don't go down there too quickly. I'm hearing the growl of a familiar enemy. Or at least it will become familiar before too long. I love this stupid gun. I suppose it bears mentioning just how powerful Adrian Shepard is compared to Gordon Freeman. Like, if you consider it, players would be going straight from the original Half-Life to Opposing Force, and as a result, they'd be having a whole world of experience with this game engine, and this would overall make Adrian seem a lot more competent. And, if you combine that with his overpowered arsenal, yeah, you could really start to get the feeling like maybe combat in this game was a little bit easy, like perhaps when it came to fighting these Zen creatures, like the whole thing was a little bit lopsided. We might even go so far as to say that, this game was going to be perhaps a bit too much of a cakewalk. And then, well, this happens.
You've got to get out of here. Listen to me, Shepard. Those things, they'll kill all of us.
Meet the pit drone. Yeah, imagine a bull squid, except that their shots fly as fast as a bullet, more or less. And they come at you super fast. Oh, and they also come at you in groups of at least 3 or 4. These are the first such creatures to come out of the group known as Race X. A name so 90s that you expect it to come at you backwards on a rocket-powered skateboard. They won't be entirely replacing the aliens from Zen, and as a matter of fact, will often be seen Zen aliens and Race X aliens, not side by side, but certainly perhaps within the same chapter. They're mostly just going to be a brand new obstacle, and they're generally going to be tougher than their Zen counterparts. By the way, you'll want to be careful when you're opening crates because, yeah. Like, I'd like to say that I've never blown myself up with a rocket launcher by accident, but I would be lying.
I don't know what's worse. You soldiers under orders to silence the facility or these vile aliens.
So, yeah, if anyone tells you that Shepard did his mission completely out of, like, ignorance or not being told what his mission was, yeah, that's not true. That's not true at all. True as it may be that Shepard is a man of somewhat dubious morals, it's not because of lack of knowledge. It's just that, you know, he's out for himself, more or less. Like, he's just here to, you know, find a way out. And unlike Gordon or Barney, he's not being forced down a path where he's actually, like, saving anybody. But enough about that. It's time for another puzzle where our objective is to cut the power so we can proceed. And, well, this is going to look a little bit embarrassing, but I promise you it's not entirely my fault. You see, Gold Source is, very slippery in terms of its physics. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell from just watching, but there's always a little bit of momentum when you're running. So you say, why not just walk past the difficult parts and then run when you're in the clear? That seems like it would be a good idea, but I just don't have the patience for it, really. That's more or less the problem. Like, I came from the old school sort of philosophy of shooters where everywhere you went, you'd be, like, running and hopping around, like, yeah, like you'd be on speed or something. It's not really the sort of thing where you do, like, slow-paced and deliberate shooting. At least not the way I'm comfortable with it. And the thing about that is that Half-Life does want you to take your time, to make things a little bit slower and just generally not go guns blazing and expect to come out of it intact. And that's something that I've been having to kind of figure out for myself, that you can't just be the action hero. Like, you have to actually treat this like you're, you know, trying to survive. Anywho, the power's down, so where do we head from here? Well, back to the elevator shaft. You might have noticed it, perhaps, but when we were going there before, there was this one dangly power line. And, well, what's a power line but just another kind of rope, you know? Actually, now that I look at it, it's probably just the elevator cable or something. Whatever, a rope's a rope, I guess. Ah, nuts. Let's try that again, shall we? Slightly better. I'll take it. Now, I mentioned that this chapter reminded me a lot of Office Complex, and here's where the similarities really start to jump out. You might recall that chapter was mostly distinguished by two particular things: vents and one-way doors. Yep, We got both of these things. But instead of a colorful cadre of security guards helping us out, we have ourselves a box. And not a very fun box either. Gold source is good for a number of things, but dragging boxes, or any object really, is just the absolute worst. Yeah, I think that everyone could have seen that one coming. Yeah, it's always nice to see our old favorites, especially since we got these new guys who seem to be trying to usurp their positions. I mean, when you really think about it, yeah, pit drones are basically like bull squids. They got a spit attack, they try to charge at you. Really the only difference is that I don't think that pit drones actually hate head crabs. Anyway, as you could probably tell by that vent, our journey with the box is going to continue. And continue, and continue. This one's actually kind of a red herring, actually. Yeah, it looks like you can climb up on top of the vent here, but there's actually nowhere to go. Nothing to find here. And in fact, it's basically completely pointless, but they gave you this whole area to run around in. Now, what you actually have to do is to slide the box so that you can climb on top of this trash can. As to why you can't just pull the trash can out, you know, like, it's not going to be that full, you could just do that. Well, that's just going to be a mystery. Let's blow something up. I think I'd actually discussed this before, but I really question the practicality of barricades when it comes to creatures that can just teleport in wherever they want. It does sort of feel counterproductive, and it might actually end up hindering you more than in helping you. If anything, it's probably more to their benefit than yours. And it certainly wouldn't have helped this guy in his particular situation. Actually, a brief aside, this particular sequence with a scientist on a table being zapped by an electric cable, I remembered it so vividly from my time playing the Gold Source games that I actually thought that it was in the original Half-Life. It's just kind of burned into my brain when it comes to things happening in an office setting.
Hello there. I hear something. When all the fighting started, I hid myself here. I don't think any of them above have survived.
You'll pardon me if I don't take your word for it. I know what I heard. Yeah, I'm gonna find these guys.
Could be.
Okay, check in. I got a bad feeling about this mission.
Corporal Shepard, we've been left behind as well. We're on to your position now. Stand back from the maintenance door. We're gonna blow it.
Shepard, you're a sight for sore eyes. Looks like somebody really screwed up, Corporal. Seems the brass bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah, well, forget about Freeman. We've got to save our own asses.
You with us, Corporal? Yes, sir. I got your 6.
No, seriously, who is this Gordon Freeman guy?
Check in. Man, if we make it out of here alive, I'm gonna buy you...
Stand back, Corporal. This should only take a minute.
Man, my dogs are barking.
This is pretty indicative of what the rest of the game is going to sound like The Heku Marines are incredibly chatty, like to a ridiculous degree.
I bet you could get lost in this place really easy.
Their pathfinding is also not the best, so as I try to coax this guy onto the elevator, that concludes this episode, so I'll see you guys again next time.
Check your zone. Area secure, sir. The current situation is looking pretty grim. Roger that.